Right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our BullyAware course, presentation today. And we've got a special guest for you, Titia Niehorster, and I hope I've said her name right. Titia is a certified mediator and health coach. She has over 20 years of experience in working in the field of social services, mediation, and conflict resolving techniques. Interviewing people, listening actively, and asking the right questions has become her second nature. She is a mother of 6, which is very brave. I have 5, so 6 is even one more step forward. And the founder of BullyAware, where she coaches teachers, parents, and children how to deal with bullying and creating a happy childhood again. Supporting and encouraging people is what Titia loves to do, and her motto is, whatever we face, we can solve it together. So I would like to welcome both Titia and Dee Russell-Thomas, who are here with us today for this, and we're going to discuss bullying and how to deal with it and what your options are. So Titia, I'd like you to go ahead and we will chip in as we go through your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chrissy, for that introduction. And first of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm very honored to be collaborating with you and the My Body is My Body organization. So thank you for that. And so today I want to talk about bullying, but then in a little bit of a different daylight. So we're going to talk about bullying, shifting perspective, and breaking patterns. So what will you learn today? What are bullying patterns? How can you break bullying patterns? Shifting focus away from the victim. That might sound strange, but I will explain later. And creating a unified circle. And I'm going to share a little bit about peer mediation and the benefits of this. But first, who am I? As Chrissy said, Titia Niehorster, I'm a certified mediator. As of yesterday, I am 48 years old.
Happy birthday.
And thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Thank you. And after experiencing bullying myself and with 2 of my children, sadly, I started BullyAware in 2018. And I have noticed that it's become quite an important topic that many, many people are interested in. And so it's my mission to raise bully awareness. And by talking about this over the years, I've created an audience of over 500K followers on LinkedIn. So which goes to show, not to take any credits, but the topic, bullying and how to prevent this. It apparently touches a large crowd of people. So it goes to show how important this is for people. So my bullying story, for me, it was about my name. I don't have a very common name, Titia, it's a Dutch name. And I think, well, whatever name you give your child, if there's a bully around, he or she will find some way to make fun of this. And so they also did with my name. And it became such an issue for me that when I went to high school, I actually wanted to change my name. And I changed my name, not officially, but just, my name that I would use in daily use. And I did that until the age of 42. It wasn't until I started to talk about this very topic on social media that I realized that, oh my goodness, I'm talking about bullying. And since I was 12, I changed my name. I'm 42. So for 30 years, I have not used my own name, So this goes to show how much impact bullying can have on someone. But at the age of 42, I was done with that. And I thought, whatever people think, that's also a journey you go through. that's for them. What I do is for me. And so I started using my original name again. But then, as a mother of 6 children, one of my daughters, she sadly enough experienced bullying. This had to do with being excluded from activities, birthday parties, and even at some point, a hate group was formed against her. The difficult part, though, during this situation was that I was going through a difficult divorce at the time. She was being bullied, and I struggled with the decision whether to take her out of that school or not. Because obviously I tried the usual thing. You talk to your daughter, you give her advice, the bullying continues. You go to the school, you talk to the teacher, nothing changes. That's what usually happens. But in her case, I did have a good teacher. That particular year where the hate group was founded against her, in her class, she had a good teacher who actually took action. But, you know, after that year, that teacher left. She was again in a new class, new teacher. And well, the bullying didn't came back that severely, but it was still there. And the part I struggled with was that in that class where she was being bullied, she did have one good best friend. But I was also going through the divorce. So I struggled with, do I leave her in this class with her best friends, but she's being bullied, but it will give her a sense of stability because the divorce was traumatic? Or do I, in this difficult divorce situation, take her out of that class, away from her friends, but put her in a new school and give her a new chance? And so I was talking to a therapist at the time, and well, against all better judgment, I decided to leave her in this class because of the stability and because she had one best friend there. And looking back, I think it would have been better to take her out of the class at that time and put her in a new school. But you know what you know at that time, and you do what you think is best. And then the school did very little, except for one teacher, but she left after that year. Then years later, with another daughter of mine, she also experienced at the same school exclusion, and she had little friends, and she was actually bullied by a teacher. And I have to make a note. All of her other children also attended that school, and they had a wonderful time there. So, you know, it wasn't like a bad school per se. It was just that these 2 of our children experienced this. But in her case, my youngest daughter, I did decide to take her out of that school, especially when she was being bullied by a teacher. I wouldn't have that. And I thought, you know, I have a stable family situation now. Let's now take this step, and then I can give her a new start in a new school. And we chose a smaller school where there was more attention for the students. The situation was known with the director. She was very approachable. And so things improved in that school, not to 100% satisfaction, but they did improve. So what is bullying? What are we talking about? So I found a definition, and there are more definitions, but I like this one. Bullying is the repetitive intentional hurting of one person or group by another person or group where the relationship involves an imbalance of power. Bullying can be physical, verbal, or psychological, and it can happen either face-to-face or online. This is a definition that comes from the Anti-Bullying Alliance. And I think it covers all fields of bullying. Now let's look at some statistics. And I'm curious what you will think of this. So 1 in 5 students at the age of 12 to 18 experienced bullying. 160,000 teens skip school every day due to bullying. 30% of young people admit to bullying others. So that's almost 1/3. This is massive, right? That was surprising to me. Over 70% of young people say they have seen bullying in their schools. And the reason I put in this statistic is because you must never underestimate the witness of bullying. you are either being bullied or you are the bully. You're bullying others, but they're also witnesses to bullying. And I would say we saw the definition of bullying, but bullying, it's intentionally hurting someone, and it's a form of abuse, and witnessing abuse, it has an impact, as we all know. Now, this is a very important statistic that will come back later in the presentation. So 57% of bullying situations stop when a peer intervenes on behalf of the students being bullied. This is important. Cyberbullying victims are 2 to 9 times more likely to contemplate suicide. I think this is shocking too. Over 80% of teens use a cell phone regularly. Maybe it's more than 80% now, making this the most common medium for cyberbullying. That's why it's so important to monitor, your child's phone. 85% of kids admit someone has said mean or hurtful things to them online. And over 55% of LGBT students experienced cyberbullying. And this is also important. Only 20 to 30% of students who are bullied notify adults about the situation. Now, let me ask some of the people who are listening, do these statistics make sense to you? What's the most surprising statistic that I've showed you today?
I think maybe the suicide, I think that's the scariest out of all of them. And I think Dee will have something to say on this as well, is that there's just the ferocity of the bullying now is so different because of the internet. The school bullying before was bad, but now you can bully somebody anonymously, and you can bully them 24 hours a day. And that is what's scary. And that is what the problem is with our children.
Yes, agree. So let's talk about some long-term bullying effects. So bullying affects all youth. So there's no segment of youth that is excluded per se. All youth can experience bullying. And it also affects those who are bullied, those who bully others, and those who witness bullying. I think that's an important fact. So students who experience bullying, they are at an increased risk for academic problems, substance use, violent behavior later in adolescence and adulthood. And students who engage in bullying behavior are also at increased risk for academic problems, substance use, and violent behavior later in adolescence and adulthood. So it goes to show. Also, the bullies themselves are affected. And this was shocking to me. And on the other hand, it wasn't that surprising. So harassment and bullying have been linked to 75% of school shooting incidents. Isn't that shocking? I thought that was very shocking. And it just goes to show how much of a deep impact bullying has.
It is terribly worrying.
Very worrying, very worrying. And everybody thinks, so it's only in the United States, right? But no, that's not. We had an incident in our neighbor country, in Serbia, last year. I think in the Netherlands, there have been some, some cases too. And I'm not sure about the UK, but you might know about that.
I don't think there's many shootings, but we do have other violence here.
Yeah, definitely. And so it has impact on health as well. So students who experience bullying are at increased risk for depression, anxiety, sleep difficulties, and poor school adjustments. Students who are both targets of bullying and engage in bullying behavior, they are at a greater risk for both mental health and behavior problems. And bullied youth, they are more likely to have low or lower self-esteem, and they are more likely to be depressed. And I mean, they all take this with them in their adulthood, you know? Students who are bullied are more likely to experience depression and anxiety and have increased feelings of sadness and loneliness, and changes in sleep and eating patterns and loss of interest in activities they used to enjoy. That's very sad to see. And students who experience bullying are twice as likely as non-bullied peers to have health effects such as headaches and stomach aches. So now comes the good part. How do we stop this? That's a good question. And I'm very curious if you have thought about this. Do you have some experiences that you witnessed in your times spending, you know, in your work on schools or working with children? Have you seen some tactics that worked? I'm very curious.
There's something called Kidscape that works, I think, well with certain, not everything works with every individual, but Kidscape is a well-known organization that steps in and works not just with the victim, but also with the bully.
Okay. And that's specifically for the UK?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know it operates across the whole of the UK. I'm not sure whether it goes further afield or not.
Yeah.
I happen to know about it because I was involved with it a number of years ago for the same reasons as you, Titia, in that I had a child who was bullied.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, I'm happy to hear that, I mean, the more organizations that raise awareness and that actually implement strategies to avoid this or to stop this, the more the better, obviously, because it's such a huge problem. I mean,
I think what's also interesting is the statistics that you were presenting could be flipped, and those same statistics and concerns could also apply to the bully.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
A little bit like child protection and the work with MBIMB with Chrissy, and Chrissy knows I've got a really strong interest in perpetrators as well as victims.
Yeah.
Because I feel that unless you get to the core problem, you're never going to eliminate the outcome, i.e. in this case, bullying. In regard for MBIMB, it could be abuse.
Yes.
And unless you start to understand what's making the bully tick and why they are turning to bullying, to make them feel better, to make them feel more powerful, to make them feel important, to make them feel safe. And it's all those reasons often because they're feeling inadequate. They are feeling unwanted. They are feeling possible exclusion. And to avoid that, they use different tactics. And unless we look at what they are doing and why they are doing it, it's very, very difficult to address it from the victim's point of view. And probably like you with my own child, I attempted to do all the textbook things.
Yeah.
Whilst my husband was actually saying, just thump him, just thump him. And I was saying, oh, no, don't do that. Oh, no, just reason with him. And I'm saying all these things that are theoretically wonderful and they don't work. And you then realize actually it's not about necessarily changing the victim's behavior. It's about changing the behavior of the bully.
Exactly that. And that's why I was saying at the beginning of one of the points we're talking about today is shifting away the focus from the victim. So I'm going to talk about that. But you hit a key point there. So why do people bully? And that's interesting. So it's a number of reasons, among others, a desire for dominance, control, or improved social status, what you mentioned, Dee. Low self-esteem, wanting to feel better about themselves, a lack of remorse or awareness of their behavior as problematic, anger, frustration, jealousy, or a preference to conflict, social struggles or thoughtlessness, being bullied themselves or experiencing abuse and neglect at home. and having personal difficulties in the areas of health, school, or self-esteem. So bullies, and that's a key point, may face lifelong issues like depression and aggression too. And another thing is, what's interesting is that the roles can change. So victims may become bullies in a different situation and vice versa. So that's interesting. So what's the common playbook of bullying and dealing?
Can I just
Yes.
interrupt? Sorry. Mary's put some comments. She can't talk at the moment, but she's put some comments in there. I thought you might want to read that before you move on to the next part. Thank you.
Can you read them, please?
Okay. It says, unless bullies are corrected, supported or involved in stopping the bullying, it just continues. It takes many people to band together to address the issue. So much effort is put into avoiding addressing the real issues affecting or encouraging the bullying. I agree completely with the fact that the issues of cause many times starts with people in power condoning it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for your comments. This is exactly, I feel the same. This is also exactly what I will be addressing further on in the presentation. So first, let's go over the common playbook of bullying. So what normally happens, and then so later on, we know what we need to change. So normally in schools, teachers talk to the bully, but often no real consequences follow, right? The parents of the bully frequently, I'm not saying all, but like often they deny or downplay their child's behavior, and thereby, maybe unintentionally, they're reinforcing it. So the victim suffers from low self-esteem, anxiety, and potential depression because it's not being addressed, just like Dee and Mary emphasized. Parents of the victim feel powerless and frustrated, and I know I felt that way, because you feel unable to protect your child. The victim often ends up leaving the class or school, and sometimes even resorting to homeschooling due to severe mental health impacts. So it's the victim that ends up being the one that has to leave. And I don't think that's right. And so little meaningful change occurs in the school environment. And therefore, the bully may continue this behavior into adulthood, potentially becoming a workplace bully or even rising to management positions, you know, due to their confidence demeanor. Now, how do we break these patterns? So what's important is that schools, and I know many schools have this, implement and strictly enforce an anti-bullying policy. And I'm sorry to say that many schools, not all of them, they do have an anti-bullying policy, and that's good for when the school inspection shows up, you know, and then you can say, okay, I have this policy, but if you're not reinforcing it, if you're not using it, if you're not walking your talk, then still nothing changes. So what's important here is that you require parents to acknowledge this policy, and you have the parents and the students sign this. And then you consistently follow through with the stated consequences. What's also very important is to take all reports of bullying seriously. If you think back about the statistics in the beginning, so when 20 or 30% of children reports bullying to an adult, it means that 70% doesn't. So the majority doesn't. And so when that minority group of 20 to 30% who actually takes, you know, crosses that threshold, comes out of their comfort zone, speaks up and reports the bullying, and then it's waved away, no, that's just teasing, that's not bullying. No, I'm sure he didn't mean it, or more of that. I mean, that's really destructive. So like the acknowledgement is also very important. When children come to you and they report the bullying, please take them seriously, because it's a big deal for them coming to you to report this. So investigate thoroughly and document incidents. I mean, you know, having the documentation is also a sign of you taking things seriously. And then when there are repetitive patterns going on, well, you have your documents, you know, and then when you talk to the parents, you have something to show them. And that's important. So validate the victim's experiences and concerns and, you know, of their parents. And this is exactly what also Dee meant and what also Mary meant. Address both the bully and the victim. What often happens is that all the focus is on the victim. We must help the victim. And of course, yes, sure, we must help the victim, but we must also not forget about the bully. The bully needs help. So provide counseling and support for the bully to address the underlying issue, very important, and offer ongoing support and resources for the victim as well. And establish clear consequences for bullying behavior. So, and there are, you know, more ways than one to do this, but implement some kind of graduated system of disciplinary actions. And consider class changes for the persistent bullies rather than the victim. Because I don't know about you, I don't think it's fair when a child is being bullied, when the victim has to leave the class. No, I think the one who, and that's not your first step, obviously. First, you talk, you follow through, you have conversations, you have your other methods that you can implement, which I will talk about in a moment. But if it continues and it doesn't stop, I think it's the bully that needs to change classes and not the victim. But sadly, in my experience, it is usually the other way around. What else can we do? And you'll notice these points are highlighted, and that's for a reason, because I'm going to go into these points in a moment. So a key point is foster a united approach among adults. So children, when they are in school, when they are at home, when they're on the playground, they are surrounded by adults. These are teachers, these are parents, these are caregivers, mentors, whatever. They're surrounded by adults. Now, it's important that these adults all are unified in the bullying approach. So we need to encourage collaboration between the parents, the teachers, and these caregivers, and model proper conflict resolution techniques. Because bullying is some sort of a conflict, you can say. Because one party is doing something that the other party doesn't like. And if it continues, I mean, you have a conflict and you need to handle this as a conflict. So promote open communication and accountability. So what you can do is facilitate mediated discussions between the involved parties, and you encourage the parents of the bullies to acknowledge the issue and also to apologize. And please don't estimate an apology. That can make all the difference in the world. And some people may be too proud to say this, but it can make a huge difference. And also, it's such a good example for your child. You know, if your child is the one who's bullying another child, what kind of example are you setting to him or to her? That it's wrong, that it needs to be stopped, and that it's not okay, and that you have to say sorry because you hurt someone. And it's the same with bullying. You hurt someone, so apologize.
I think that's a big thing, is parents actually admitting that their child has done something wrong.
Yes.
Because we moved from America to England. So my one daughter had a very American accent because she'd been going to school there. And when she came to England, they bullied her tremendously. And they'd beat her up outside school, and then I'd go and tell the school, and the school would say, well, she's not being beaten up on school grounds, we can't do anything about it. And so I did go and speak to some of the parents, and it was like, well, your child's obviously doing something to upset our child. So there wasn't the admission from the parents even that. So I also had to move her from school to another school. Luckily, she settled at that one. But I think trying to actually get parents to admit that their child is doing wrong is a big thing.
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's a huge
They don't
thing.
want to admit. And
well, yeah,
they're not doing their child any favors.
No. The only favor they're doing at that moment is to settling their ego and their pride, you know, because having to admit that your child did something that's not okay. Sure. I mean, I don't think everyone would be cheering to do that. Sure. But it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And parents need to realize that you need to do what's right. And therefore you are doing your child a favor because you're modeling that behavior that you want your child to have and to grow up as a responsible adult in society, you know, and that's important. So therefore, the last point, it's also a focus on long-term behavioral change, but that starts in childhood, you know, by setting these examples. So you can implement ongoing education programs for students, for staff, for parents, and regularly review them and update any strategies that you have. And what I will be doing next is introducing, and this all has to do with this, the social unified circle is what I call it. Now, what is the social unified circle? So it's creating a circle, a unified environment around the children, the adults that surround the children, creating a unified environment to address bullying. And when you initiate the circle, you bring together the parents, the teachers, and the caregivers of both the bully and the victim to establish a safe, non-judgmental, you know, space for open dialogue. And I know that won't be easy for some parents, but if you integrate this in your anti-bullying policy of your school or of your institution, maybe you have a children's sports center, whatever organization you have and you work with children, implement this in there, that parents, before they enter that organization, before they enter your environment, your school, that they know about this, that they are prepared. And then set ground rules. So agree on respectful communication guidelines and emphasize confidentiality and also commitments to the process. And a lot of what I'm talking today comes from mediation practices, but again, you're resolving a conflict here, right? Again, acknowledge the issue is key. So encourage the bully's parents to recognize the problem and validate the experiences of the victim and their family. I mean, they must be taken seriously. You cannot say your child did something to upset my child. No. I mean, if you're an adult and someone does something to upset you, you don't. I mean, if you start beating these people up, you'll be arrested, right? And of course, children will not be arrested, but apply that same principle and model the correct behavior. If you're not doing it as an adult, you shouldn't unintentionally reinforce your child to act, you know, the same way. It's just wrong. Practice active listening. So using mediation techniques like reflective listening, like summarizing, you know, and make sure that all parties are heard and understood. And identify some common goals and common grounds. I mean, usually when you have a conflict, you have different interests. For instance, when people are going through a divorce, but there's also this common ground. And in mediation, that's where you focus on, right? You focus on the common ground. So what's a common ground that you could have as parents of the bully and parents of the victim? Well, one of them is creating that safe school environment and making sure that all children feel safe. I think we could agree that each parent would want that for their child, you know? So focus on the well-being of all children involved and establish these objectives for resolving the situation. And brainstorm about solutions. I mean, there are all kinds of things you can do for activities with the children, depending on their age, of course. but encourage all of them to come with ideas, also the children, and again, use these conflict resolution techniques, you know, like reframing and normalizing, and develop an action plan. So create these concrete steps to address the bullying and assign responsibilities to all members of the circle. And like one easy example is, so when there's a birthday party, you know, your child is invited and not excluded. Or in school activities and projects, you match up certain children, and you know, and the goal is that everyone gets along and implements these anti-bully tactics, and where every child feels safe. And as adults, I mean, you can, yeah, you have to walk your talk. I mean, as a parent, you're raising your child. As a teacher, you're also raising children, you know, during the day in your classroom. But walk your talk. So model the positive behavior. Be that responsible parent or teacher that talks to, you know, the parents of the bully, the parents of the victim, both children, and treat them equally with respect. Model again that positive behavior, because children, they watch what you do, you know, they don't watch what you say, they watch what you do, and that's important. So demonstrate that respectful communication and problem solving, and show empathy and also willingness to compromise. Yeah, I mean, that's in conflict resolution, compromising is a key point. And also, you know, don't just have one meeting. Have regular check-ins, you know, schedule follow-up meetings and assess the process and adjust the plan as needed based on the feedback that the people are giving. And celebrate progress, you know, those little easy wins, that's beautiful. You can, you know, reward the children for creating kindness challenges, you know, or there are more ways to do that. So acknowledge those positive changes and efforts made by all the parties, and then also reinforce the benefits of working together. So it's again modeling the working together, modeling that unified circle around the children. And so by implementing the social unified circle, adults can model that unified positive behavior. They can demonstrate openness, acceptance, a commitment to collaborative problem solving. And this approach, it takes the issue seriously, and it shows children how to work together effectively and how to resolve conflicts. And I mean, these are skills they will take with them into their adulthood. So you will doing your children a favor with this. Any more questions so far, Chrissy, or comments?
I was just going to say something about we have a problem. Dee was saying that parents would, there's a quote, I would rather be the parent of a victim rather than of a bully. It's more comfortable with me and my values. So, but I agree with that. But parents sort of was like, oh, well, my child's being bullied, you know, rather than my child as being the bully. But this whole thing is about talking about this problem. And it's the same as we have with child abuse. When we see a problem like this, it's like we don't want to deal with things that make us feel uncomfortable. And having a child that is bullying another child is a very uncomfortable place to be. So we don't want to talk about it. And so it's the same as child abuse. We've got to start talking about these subjects if we're going to do something about them.
Exactly.
It's just a fact that we cannot just put them all in the background and make them taboo while it carries on.
I know,
but I think the only way we can do that is to eliminate blame and shame. And it's those two aspects that cross over both areas that you're talking about, Chrissy. But those two aspects are what keeps people silent.
Yes.
It keeps victims silent.
Yes.
It keeps perpetrators silent from seeking support when sometimes they realize that is what they need. It keeps parents silent because they are ashamed that they may have actually reared a child that bullies another, and that then is a reflection upon their parenting. All those aspects are shame and blame. And if we can take that away, then we can start having open conversations. And I think your social unified circle, which is terrific, Titia, I think it's linked to restorative justice.
Yes.
It's linked to an openness to talk in a group without focusing on those two words, blame and shame.
Exactly.
Yeah, that we've got to get past that and realize that there's a reason why these children are doing this, or these people are doing this, and we've got to get to the bottom of the problem rather than just avoiding it and making out that it doesn't exist, or or they grow out of it. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. But as you say, that the bully turns out to be the workplace bully or the boss bully, or so we have to deal with it.
It's no different to every other problem that we have in society. One always has to look. If you have a leaking roof, you don't put a plaster over it. You look to see what's causing the problem.
Exactly.
If you have a child that's under distress, is anorexic, is unhappy, you look to what the cause is. If you have somebody who's projecting bullying characteristics, you look to see why that's happening. And it's all back to looking for cause and effect all the time.
Yes.
There's a message here from Mary, and it says, smart bullied people learn this is their only outlet for other issues, as opposed to supporting complex problem-solving skills that are inclusive.
Yes, and that's why it's so important to what Dee was saying, to create that safe environment where it's safe to speak, and then without the blaming, without the shaming, speaking from your own perspective. I feel like this when, and not blaming in communication, but addressing it and talking about it and acknowledging it. I think that's the first step.
And I think it's looking at the Rogerian counselling, where you're looking at empathy and congruence and positive self-regard. And all those issues, including the reflective listening, are all part of trying to understand the psyche of what somebody is doing and why they are doing it. And one can never do that until we start using both our ears instead of our one mouth, and we listen more to what people are saying, and what is causing them to feel the great need to project that element of power. And as I said before, most mental issues go back to power, to trying to be in control. As I said, eating disorders, you're trying to be in control of yourself. When you have a mute child, it's because they're trying to be in control of something that somebody else can't take away from them. When you have a child that bullies, it's because they've got that essence of control, and one has to look at, why do they feel the need for that control and power? What is it in their psyche that's not making them comfortable with themselves?
Exactly. And it's again coming back to shifting away the focus from the victim, not to forget the victim, but mainly to not forget the bully, who also needs help.
Yeah.
So,
and maybe the parents and the family and the family situation, because that's where it's perhaps stemming from.
Exactly. And that's exactly where the social unified circle comes in, to involve the parents and to create that circle and to start working from a unified perspective rather than the divided perspective. So to give some examples of brainstorming solutions for addressing bullying, it's important to promote kindness, and you can do this in numerous ways. And I'm sure you know, through challenges, giving rewards, implementing peer mediation programs, which I'm a big fan of, and I will talk about that in a moment. Create buddy systems for student supports is one way. Organize inclusive team building activities for children. Launch, school-wide anti-bullying campaigns. I know there's schools that are doing great work in this, and that's wonderful. And establish these safe spaces within the school where you can have that safe conversation, and develop confidential reporting systems. And again, that's also has to do with the blaming and shaming. And foster empathy through regular class discussions. And it's these skills that children need and they'll benefit from when they grow up. Start mentorship programs, pairing older and younger students together, helping each other. And I know some classes are designed that way. They are set up that way when that's a combination of older and younger students, right? And create these dedicated spaces for conflict resolutions. And it's these sorts of ideas, that involve the students, the teachers, and the parents. And they're all working together in creating that safe school environment and emphasizing positive behavior and peer support and open communication to combat bullying effectively. But it is a joint approach. So what are the benefits of implementing practices like this? So you'll have student involvement. Many ideas can come directly, from engaging the students in creating solutions, and that will create ownership for them and it will empower them. It's a multi-stakeholder approach. So, it involves students and the teachers and the parents, creating that united front. And it comes from positive reinforcement. And so you can foster several ideas and focus on promoting kindness and empathy rather than just punishing negative behavior. And you will create safe spaces and support system. There are multiple suggestions to create physical or social spaces for support and conflict resolution. And I think the most important one is this one. It's the skill development that you will provide children with. And in some cases, also parents, if it's coming from home, then the parents can learn too. So it's many ideas to help the students develop that important, social and emotional skills like empathy and communication and conflict resolutions that they will carry with them into high school, into college, into their workspace, into their relationships when they grow up. Very important. And so the social unified circle, it creates a comprehensive community-wide strategy to combat bullying and to promote that positive school environment. It's an emphasis on prevention and intervention and the development of a supportive school culture. And I think that's what all parents want for their children. Now, for what age is this, appropriate? You can apply this to all ages. Well, depending on the age, like for primary school, it would have to be more simplified processes and more adult-led interventions with age-appropriate activities. And then for secondary schoolers can understand more complex social dynamics, and they're more able to participate in discussions and self-reflect. And high schoolers, they can comprehend long-term consequences of actions, and they can engage in more nuanced conflict resolution. So you can adapt it to the age. And now peer mediation programs. So what are the benefits? And I'm sure you've heard of those too. I'm a big fan of this because schools who implement this, they have good results, They have a decline in bullying situations. It has lots of benefits for them. And if you look at the statistics, so coming back to that, 57% of bullying situations stop when a peer intervenes. on behalf of the student being bullied. That's massive, and that's why, you know, it's important, it works. So the benefits are you implement conflict resolvement techniques into the school curriculum. You enhance student skills by conflict resolution, leadership, communication skills. You improve your school environments. You have a reduction of disciplinary issues, bullying and violence. And you empower your students. So there's an increased responsibility and engagement of your students. And you have positive social dynamics. So there's greater empathy, more inclusion, and more understanding. And obviously, this will also reflect on academic benefits, because as we think back about the statistics in the beginning, people who are being bullied or people who engage in bullying, they face also consequences in their academic results, in school adjustments, you know, sleeping problems, etc. So there's also a benefit for the academic benefits, improved performance, because, well, there's simply a reducement of social stress. And there's a reduced staff burden. So it's less pressure on the teachers and administrators in dealing with bullying situations, as this can decline by implementing this. And so the long-term advantages are a better real-world preparation. You're preparing your students for the real world in a good way, and you're helping them to grow social and emotionally. And overall, peer mediation, it fosters a more positive, supportive, and productive learning environment for all students. Now, how can you implement this? I will quickly go over that. I'm not going to go through a whole curriculum of a peer mediation program. There's lots of material about that, and maybe we can talk about that another time. But it's important to introduce this concept to school communities, to your school community, and to recruit different student volunteers for this. You have to have parental consent, obviously. Develop comprehensive training curriculum. So you will be training those student volunteers who will be peer mediators. They will have training in communication, conflict resolvement techniques, obviously adjusted to their age level. Someone wanted to say something? No? Okay. It's important to conduct training sessions for your students and to create a supervision structure. So you will have to have some of the teachers or adults trained in this also, and set up a referral system. And then you have to have a designated mediation space, you know, and launch the program school-wide is important, and then go by monitoring and evaluate the effectiveness of this. And provide ongoing support and training, both for the students, but also for the teachers and the parents, and recognize and reward mediators. That's important too. So peer mediation, it really empowers students to actively resolve conflicts and promote this positive school environment. And it's also a way to involve many stakeholders in the process. Now, what's the ripple effects of this? If you're implementing practices like the social unified circle, like peer mediation programs, the beautiful thing is you're cultivating emotional intelligence. So if you're paying attention to this, you're implementing this in your school or in your organization, students can develop stronger empathy and self-awareness, and they will carry these skills into adulthood and future relationships. They will be breaking generational cycles. And that's important because as children learn healthier ways to interact, they're much less likely to perpetuate bullying behaviors with their own children, you know, or their own relationships. And that's important. Workplace harmony. I mean, adults who learned conflict resolution in school, they bring these skills to their professional lives, fostering more cooperative work environments. Community building. So the principles of the social unified circles, they extend beyond school, and they're encouraging a more cohesive and supportive communities. And there are huge mental health benefits, because if you can reduce bullying, if you can improve conflict resolution skills, it will lead to better mental health outcomes for the individuals and also throughout their lives. It can make a huge difference. And you will be adding to leadership development, because students who participate in peer mediation, they become, empathic leaders in various fields, they can positively influence society that way. And this is a very beautiful one. You can have global impact as well. I mean, maybe one of those students who learns this will become someone at an important, impactful place, and as more schools adopt these approaches, you can have this new generation emerge with enhanced skills in diplomacy, and then, potentially influencing a global conflict resolution, depending where that person will come later on in life. So it can lead, implementing these programs in school can lead to far-reaching positive changes in society, and just creating more empathetic and skills generation of adults.
Dee was saying we've not touched on the child or adult who may cry wolf, ones that make false allegations, that are always the victim, people wanting to be the victim so that they can get attention. And well, Dee, do you want to talk about it? I don't want to take your...
Yeah, sorry, I was just saying that there are a significant number of people who actually do cry wolf, who do project themselves as being a constant victim. That's not to take away from the true victims. But what I'm trying to say is those people also need our support. Absolutely. Because the reason they are portraying this is because somewhere in their psyche, they're not happy. Yeah. So the fact that they need that seeking of attention, that they are making false accusations, that they are constantly putting themselves in a scenario where they are then being picked upon or bullied or whatever, we have to look at why is that happening, and why are we constantly worried about that situation. And that's the bit that worries me a little bit, because they can be cast off as, look, they're just crying wolf again, then they're of no interest, they've always got a problem. But actually that's their problem. That is their problem, is that they are constantly seeking attention. And I think we need to look at that, and we need to look at how there are so many different areas, and it's really complex, but we need to look at why in their psyche that's happening in their life. And I think the key area for me would be always reward positive behavior if you want change. Never, ever reward inappropriate negative behavior, because we're sending out the wrong messages then. And that applies to children, it applies to adults, it applies to parents, it applies to us, colleagues.
Yeah.
We must make sure that we are rewarding and congratulating and praising the areas that we consider to be right, kind, and important, and that we are not fueling young people's desire to actually continue with their inappropriate behavior.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Dee. You're absolutely right. And again, coming back to that the bully also needs help, and coming back to the points of why do people bully. One of those was, low self-esteem, wanting to feel better about themselves, wanting attention. And you can, those would be the cry wolf situations as well, coming from that point of low self-esteem, low confidence, wanting to have that attention, and then portraying themselves as, as a victim. And I didn't touch on those specifically today because, well, I only had an hour.
Yeah, but you've covered such a lot, Titia. You've covered such a lot in a short time. You've done brilliantly.
Thank you.
I've loved it.
But thank you. It's an important topic indeed.
Yeah.
And but we can talk about that another time with your permission. I wanted to close off today with, well, again, coming back to the ripple effect. So the future, it starts with you, you who are watching, you as a parent, you as a teacher, who might be watching this recording in the future, but it starts with you. What can you do? And I always like to think, and it was in my introduction too, what we can face together, but it's by doing the right thing. Do the right thing. If a child comes to you, take them seriously. You know, and if you're a school director, you have the anti-bullying policy, follow through, take the children, you know, seriously, take the parents seriously and address this. But it starts with you. I mean, even if you make a difference in one child's life, you know, that can make a huge difference.
Yes.
And that's important. And so to show some inspirational quotes. So the children of today will make the India of tomorrow. And we're not talking about India today, but this is true, right? The children of today will make the world of tomorrow. And the way we bring them up, it will determine the future of the country, of the world. And this is a quote by the first Prime Minister of India. And then also by Robert F. Kennedy. So each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring those ripples, build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. And that's so true. And then I wanted to show a little video to you. It's about 30 seconds. So did you hear the sound?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. No.
So let me just increase the volume a little bit.
Oh, hey, whoa. Is it? Right.
And that was a beautiful little video. And the message is kindness is free. You know, you can all do a little thing to spread that kindness and to make a difference. And by doing so, even if it's just a little thing, we can shift the perspective and we can hopefully break these patterns. So that was my story for today. I wanted to share. Thank you so much for listening. I will stop sharing now, and maybe there are some questions or comments perhaps.
Well, Titia, what a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. There was so much in there and so much great content. And it's just a subject that, and I think we'd like to probably have another conversation with you, because I think there's a lot more than we can learn, and we'll put it up on YouTube so that we can share it. And so you can share it as well, because parents, teachers, children need to know that there are alternatives. I think when children are being bullied perpetually, they feel very hopeless. And as I say, especially now when, you know, used to, you could come home from school and then you'd be at home and the bullying would stop. But now it doesn't stop. Because it's on your phone, it's on your tablet, it's whatever it is. So 24 hours a day. So these kids are just being bombarded. And if they're not being supported by either because their family doesn't know, I mean, I think a lot of parents have no idea what their children are going through.
Well, they don't, because only 20 to 30% talks about it, you know.
Exactly. So,
and to be fair, it's because a lot of children do not want to give their parents additional pressure and worry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they don't want them to take their phone away.
Well, or they don't want their parents to go to school and make a scene, and they're
don't want to see.
embarrassed, and that's the blaming and the shaming again, you know?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's so much that's going on in that child's head, and
Exactly.
they're having to deal with the bullying, or they are the bully and are having to deal with, you know, maybe I'm not a nice person, you know, maybe they're having feelings of inadequacy, guilt, but that will come out in more bullying as they're trying to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
Against that other.
And it's a survival technique.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so today was more focused on what can we do as adults. I mean, we're around those children, we're the parents, we're the teachers, you know, we're the responsible ones, we're showing them. And they're, like I said, children, they watch what you do. They don't watch what you say. They have 2 eyes and they watch you. And 2 ears, your point, 2 ears, they listen to you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So be the responsible one and do something about it and break that pattern, you know?
Yeah. And start the conversation. That's my line always. Start the conversations. We need to have these difficult conversations with our kids, but we need to do them so that our children feel comfortable.
Yes.
You know, it's no good, right, saying, well, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about this, and they go, oh, Mom, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
But also, as you say, the media has a lot to answer for. I mean, without getting into any politics, watching the Olympics and watching an Algerian boxer being absolutely vilified because they have said that she is a man. And actually, this person, rightly or wrongly, but was born a woman, has female genitalia. She happens to have high testosterone, as many do. And suddenly the media have started saying, oh, there's a man entered a woman's boxing competition. Yeah. And everybody believes that headline.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
it.
Few people dig deep, as I did. I mean, I had to do the same.
That's a form of cyberbullying. That's a form of cyberbullying. And then at the Olympics.
What we know, and what we know is, what you learn is that the most vulnerable of our society are the ones who are most likely to be picked upon.
Exactly.
And it's going to be, you know, Darwin's theory, survival of the fittest almost, but those most vulnerable, which may be around gender, it may be around size, it may be around intelligence, it may be around ability, or it may be around physical ability. It's those folk who often are the butt of the bullying. And I think I'd like to add at the end of all this, Titia, is that all my life I was working with race equality. And constantly I was saying, please don't underestimate the power of bullying against racism. Both are equally abhorrent. Bullying can easily lead to suicides. Don't underestimate bullying and assume that racism has that higher league. They don't. It's not about leagues. It's not about what is worse. It's about what affects the individual and what impact it has upon that individual. Somebody might say, well, they used to me, they used to call me Ginger all the time as a kid because I had bright red hair. Was it offensive? Yes, it was. Did I like it? No, I didn't. Did I cope with it? Yes, because I actually became hopefully not particularly a bully, but I became a pretty strong character in order to survive that name calling. And unlike you, Titia, I changed my name. And I changed it from a very young age. And at the age of sweet 70, I have never gone back to it because it was a name that I was teased about. Yeah.
Me too. But then, you know, you react differently. For me, I went back to make a point.
Yeah, exactly. I can see that.
This is my name. Deal with this.
You may see me next week with a different name.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who Who knows? Yeah, but I think you make a very good point. And I think you can see what a society is about in different countries by how they treat their weaker ones, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think social media has got such a lot to answer for, because what happens is you never get the full story. Like Dee was saying, you only get a snippet.
You get the headline.
What is going to get me lots of likes and lots of, you know, people looking at my platform, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, people don't care. Is it going to get me looked at or my site looked at? And
look at recently in the UK. In the UK recently, the horrors of the stabbings, and immediately fake news came out saying the perpetrator was Muslim.
Right. Yeah.
And he wasn't.
Terrible.
No.
Terrible.
And they started burning down the mosque and different things.
I know, it's horrific.
It's terrible.
And
we now find the perpetrator
is a
Christian. Yeah, we find the perpetrator is a Christian. Are we burning down churches?
No. I know, it's terrible.
There's no sense to a lot of this, but it is the media who use their strap lines to draw in people's attention,
Well,
who
that's
then
their main
haven't
goal.
got the capacity to actually say, I'm going to dig this deeper and I'm going to find out what the truth is. They don't want that because it's too much hard work. So they would just take a strap line here and there.
Yeah, and then
Well,
go.
exactly.
Anyway, ladies, we're 1 hour 20 minutes in.
Okay.
But it's been such a pleasure. And
likewise,
I'm just going to end the recording. So thank you so much, Titia. And we have loved every minute of all your invaluable wisdom on bullying. And we will definitely do another session soon. So thank you very much. Please stay.
Thank you.
Most welcome.
Thank you, Chrissy.
On. Unmute. Oh. I think, are we okay there? Is Titia gone?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, you're there. Okay. Oh, you've just turned your have I turned?
No, I can't turn it on.
No, that's fine.
It says the host stopped my video.
Okay. All right. So that's lovely. Thank you so much. And Titia, can you also send me that presentation?
Sure. Yes, I can.
My kid had 2 calls while we've been on this session from my kids. It's like,
Well,
no,
go ahead
away. I'm busy.
Go ahead and call them. Yeah.
I'll